In 1718, pirates on Blackbeard's ships voted on everything, even whether to fire their own captain. You were never taught that pirate ships ran real elections. There's a reason. And the truth about why that got buried is stranger than the pirates themselves. Here's what you actually learned about Blackbeard: beard on fire, cutlass in hand. A monster terrorizing the Carolina coast until the Navy finally cut off his head in 1718. That's the whole story you got. Ruthless killer, bloody end, curtain closes. What nobody mentioned: Blackbeard's crew and pirate crews across the Caribbean and the Atlantic operated under written constitutions, signed agreements, voted in leadership. At a time when Britain itself was ruled by an unelected king, men on a stolen sloop were holding elections in the middle of the ocean. That detail didn't make it into your textbook, not by accident. Every pirate crew that sailed under men like Blackbeard signed something called the Articles, a contract, agreed to by every man aboard before the ship even left port. The captain wasn't appointed, he was elected, and he could be voted out just as fast the second the crew decided he'd lost his nerve or his judgment. Real power sat with a second officer called the quartermaster, chosen separately, whose whole job was checking the captain's authority. He divided the loot. He settled disputes. He could overrule the captain on nearly everything except battle itself. Two elected leaders checking each other on a wooden deck in 1718. While back on land, most Europeans had never cast a vote for anyone in their entire lives. And it gets stranger. The Articles didn't just cover leadership. They covered injury. Lose a leg boarding an enemy ship, you got a fixed payout written down in advance, sometimes 800 pieces of 8. Lose an eye, lose a finger, lose a hand, there was a number for that too. This was disability compensation, negotiated and guaranteed, a century and a half before any government on Earth offered anything close to it. Shares of plunder were split close to evenly, captain included, sometimes getting barely more than a common sailor. Gambling was banned on some ships. Lights out by 8 was enforced on others. These were rules built by outlaws for outlaws, and they worked well enough that crews stayed loyal to a system that could execute a man for breaking it, because in exchange it wouldn't let one man rule alone. And that's not even the strangest part. But here's what doesn't add up. If pirates were criminals, the worst of the worst, hunted and hanged on sight, why would they bother building a fairer system of government than the nation that was actively trying to kill them? Historians who study pirate crews have found the men who signed those articles weren't randomly violent. Many were former Royal Navy or merchant sailors. Men who'd lived under captains who could flog them, starve them, or steer them into death with zero accountability and zero vote. They knew exactly what unchecked power looked like. They'd survived it. And when they finally had the chance to build something themselves, they built the opposite. That's the buried why. Pirate democracy wasn't chaos. It was a direct rebuttal, a floating protest against the exact system that had abused these men for years. Naval ships of the era were brutal dictatorships, where a captain's word was law and a sailor had no recourse, no vote, no appeal. Pirate ships flipped that on its head on purpose. And that inconvenient fact is precisely why empires that hanged pirates by the hundreds had no interest in advertising what pirate crews actually believed. A murderer is easy to hang and forget. A murderer who built a fairer government than the crown that's executing him, that's a story empires don't want repeated at the docks, where every underpaid, overworked sailor could hear it and start asking why his own ship didn't work that way. So the history got flattened. Keep the beard, keep the flames, bury the vote. If pirate crews were building fairer systems than most nations on Earth in secret on stolen ships, what does that tell you about how much of civilization back then was really just power nobody had agreed to give away? The pirates weren't the only ones without a vote. They were just the only ones who did something about it. So why, out of every pirate detail available, is the beard on fire the one that survived, and the Parliament never made it into a single classroom?